This episode of The Curious Life is brought to you by 28 by Sam Wood. 28 is an online training and nutrition program designed to show you just how easy it is to make your health a priority. Hello and welcome to the Curious Life podcast. My name is Yana Firestone. Today I'm joined by the loveliest guy in Australia.
Turn it up.
Now, I'm not saying that because of your impressive contribution to health and fitness across the world, but actually because this is the second time that you have provided me with your valuable time to sit down and have a chat.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I did just say before we turned on, are we acknowledging that we've been here before? And
Yep.
You said, I think we should acknowledge it, and I think it's a good idea. But
Yeah.
we had a beautiful chat last time. You made me cry, and then you lost all the podcast with a tech glitch, and
Yep.
someone that's in tech understands that happens.
Yes.
So I am more than happy to catch up again. It's been a few months since we caught up last time, so I'm sure we'll probably head off in a completely different direction.
That's right. And I really am so grateful. And as I've heard now from the pros, this kind of a glitch happens once.
Right, that's good to know.
And that's it. It never
And
happens
I was it.
again.
I
And
was
you were
it. Okay,
You were it.
that's good.
So we lost the best interview that ever happened.
And who will ever dispute it?
That's it. So I guess, because in my other life I'm a therapist,
Yep.
I'm really interested in knowing about kind of people's backstory and the emotional side of things, and we'll definitely get into all the stuff that you're doing now, which I think is amazing and inspiring, and a lot of our listeners always looking for different ways to get moving and be healthy, and you're the expert there. But you had a humble beginning in Tassie, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's funny you say that we'll get to what I do now, but I don't think I would be doing what I do now without, where I've come from. I definitely think 28 is an extension of me, and the way I kind of, can be vulnerable and hopefully people find me relatable is definitely because of, where I've come from, I guess. I mean, I don't really reflect on that too much, but as you say that, I definitely think that's the case. And yes, humble beginnings it was. A boy from Hobart, lived there for 20 years, relatively normal, if there is such a thing, upbringing. 3 kids in our family. I'm the oldest of 3. My little sister Hannah and my little brother Alex. Mum and Dad lived in a little weatherboard house in West Hobart and walked to school with my brother and sister and all that kind of stuff, and then went off to high school, the same high school that my mum and dad actually went to.
Oh, wow.
They went to school together for 12 years. They were 2 years apart and they didn't know each other, and then they met on a cruise to New Zealand and fell in love and got married, which is a pretty amazing story.
That's unbelievable.
So, yeah,
Wow.
I mean, they probably recognised each other even subconsciously, but crossed paths on this cruise the first time either of them had left Australia, and the rest is history.
Amazing.
And love dogs, I've always loved people, a sports nut, wasn't a terribly great academic. I do remember vividly my teachers kind of having a bit of a dig at me to say, Sam, you're going to have to grow up one day and you're not going to be able to wear your runners to work for the rest of your life. And I guess I proved them wrong as I sit here in my shorts and a T-shirt and my runners, but they were probably making a good point. I wasn't taking school. I just got distracted, had no concentration span, and it was far more appealing to hang out with friends or play sport, and the priority list wasn't probably correct. So I sort of fumbled my way through school. Yeah, I guess the greatest challenge and life-changing thing that has ever happened to me is that my mum passed away from cancer when I was 15. She fell sick when I was 13. So losing your mum at that age, being the oldest of 3 kids, and having the hardest thing for us was mum was our everything. We were completely besotted with her. We spent every waking minute with her. Dad worked really, really long hours, and loved Dad to bits, always have, always will, but didn't know him anywhere near as well as I do now back then because I saw him so little, and my brother and sister would say the same thing. So when Mum passed away, Dad had to sell his business. He literally didn't work for, I don't know, it was probably 2.5 years. He almost had to go back to getting to know his own kids, which was really hard, trying to wear the mum and dad hat after and going through such a tragedy himself. I mean, I have so much admiration for him. Now, he's a bit of a hero of mine, really, to look back at what he did. And, he literally didn't work until we were broke and he had to work type thing. And, an amazing man. And, it's brought us crazily close together. But I've always been close with my brother and sister, but I think that tragedy probably made us closer together. And we're super close with Dad, all of us. And, I think there's a big part of me that, as much as that was the hardest thing ever, there's a part of me that whatever I do, it's driven by wanting to make my mum proud of me. And, hopefully I'm doing that to some extent.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I think it's really interesting that you talk about your dad's role because you've been publicly an advocate for men kind of stepping up and taking parental leave and the importance of a father's role in kids' lives. And for the longest time, and for our parents' generation, they went to work and they were the busy ones. They weren't that connected.
And I don't want it to sound for 1 second like I'm having a dig at others that perhaps don't have the same flexibility with their work as I do. I'm very, very fortunate. Yeah. But I think you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And, Willow had her 2nd birthday last week, and it's been the best 2 years of my life by a mile. And, I would have hated if I'd missed out on so much of that stuff. And, I'm still probably not at home as much as I'd like to be, or as much as Snez would like me to be, particularly now we have little Charlie as well. Our hands are well and truly full, but it's, it's just the best. I mean, I fell in love with Evie and we just developed this great friendship, and she's now 14 and we've then had 2 little girls, and now my whole house is pink and my world's been turned upside down. And I can't even remember what my life used to be like, to be honest. It just feels so foreign and so far away. It's almost like that was someone else's life that I was looking at from the outside looking in, and this has always kind of been what was meant to be the destiny for me. And I absolutely love it, and so lucky that Snez is just the best mum ever.
Wow, amazing. I think, I shared with you last time that my mum also passed away when I was young. And so we've got, young kids about the same age. And in my journey of becoming a mother, I completely relate because that was always my kind of end game as well. I knew that a family was where I always wanted to be. But having lost a parent, it's really interesting how much that plays into kind of every part of my parenting and my thoughts about kids and life and death, and it's just kind of always there. And I wonder how much your mum's present for you in your parenting life.
Lots. I think I probably don't think about it every day, but when you ask me something like that, I was so close to Mum, all 3 of us were, and then I also look at, I think, how losing her at different stages of our life had different impacts. It had a huge impact on Hannah being the only girl and being 12 years old. Had a huge impact on Alex just being so young. People say, was it harder for you because you knew your mum better? I think it was probably easier for me because she could have the biggest impact. I definitely feel like I'd probably gotten through the most challenging developmental period of my childhood and had my mum there to help with that. And it's undeniable the impact that she had on who I am today, and my resilience and my perspective, and the nature that I kind of have is 100% a reflection of her. And I guess that just shows you, like, if you can input that onto your kids, I think so much finger pointing goes on in this world. Like, whose fault is it? Is it the school's fault? Is it the, with food choices, for example, in a nutrition sense? Is it the marketing agencies? Is it, like it all starts at home. And I don't mean what you do as a job. I mean looking someone in the eye, saying hello to them, having good manners, being grateful for things, we live in this crazy world where we're always like, what's that person doing and what's that person got? And we just lose complete perspective. And I'm massive on, for my kids, it's not about what they have, it's about the experiences they have. I'd much rather spend 3 hours with my kids at the beach with no mobile phones and just like capturing the little things that they say, rather than do extravagant things together or buy them extravagant gifts. I think you think that's great, but the magic that happens with a $2 bucket and spade
absolutely,
in a 3-hour period where you kind of lose yourself can't be beaten. You know, like it's those little moments, and to capture those moments you need to be there, you need to be present, and that sort of comes back to what you're asking me, I guess, that you just got to be there. I had mates that I was, not the first of my friends to have kids by any means. I was probably at the later end of the spectrum, and it was really different. Some of my friends who are a bit more paternal were from day dot. It changed them. Others, it wasn't really until their kids were maybe 6 months old until the sort of penny dropped. They felt really lost when their kids were babies and so dependent on mum and breastfeeding and not much I can do as a dad. I reckon there's so much you can still do, from the, Charlie's 12 weeks old, and to the way the little engagement and her trying to make noises and the way she follows you around with her eyes. And, I definitely think that the time you spend now carries you through. I remember I used to, when from about 4 months, Willow and I would walk in the baby Bjorn, and she'd be outward facing, and we'd point at trains and we'd pick leaves off trees, and I reckon that bonded us from then, that now it's like the thing that Daddy and Willow do together. Like we go for walks and we go exploring, and, she was so little then, she didn't really know what was going on, but I definitely think she remembers. And I think you just got to try things. I mean, what do you got to lose? Like, you don't have any sleep, you're tired, you're grumpy, but so you just like, if you're up, do something, if you're walking around the block at 5 o'clock in the morning, as long as they're warm, I say go for it. And it's amazing the magic that happens in those little opportunities.
Absolutely. And I know this is probably a tough kind of thing to answer, because how do you really know, but do you think your feelings about being a present parent and being so involved with your kids from the very beginning all the way through has anything to do with the fact that you did lose your mum and then your dad became such a big part of your life?
Totally. I think it's this is not a criticism that he wasn't there as much. I think Dad would admit himself, I didn't know what I was missing out on until and he had a big catering business and stressful, and it was always working weekends, and but, I have the fondest memories of Dad when he would take the same 2 weeks off each year, and we'd hire a little shack, and for the first time in a long time he'd be relaxed and not stressed and not going to work really early and coming home really late. And, that's it's funny, like in a 12, 13-year period, it's like those memories are really vivid, but the other memories kind of aren't because it was really late at night or really early in the morning. And obviously the memories since Mum passed are really vivid with Dad because he's been there a lot. But absolutely, I think it's a combination of seeing how close we've become since he was there, and perhaps seeing that we weren't as close as we could have been when he wasn't. I definitely think that was the case. We really almost, didn't know our dad. I mean, we did, but we didn't. Like he was still always there. Christmas and birth, of course he was, but it's not that level of the way the way I knew Mum. I knew everything about her. She knew everything about us. She knew what we were feeling before we sort of knew what we were feeling. She was so in tune with what we needed, emotionally, kind of, a hug, whatever it was. And I think, and I see that with Snez now, like even the way Charlie looks at her, like just besotted, like cracks her up, and obsessed with, and Willow too. Like if Willow ever bangs her knee or something, it's mummy very quickly. Fun dads no longer needed. So I mean, and it's a beautiful thing to see. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in some ways it's almost like I hate to even say this, but like a blessing in disguise almost.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a horrible thing, but there has been a silver lining. I mean, I would give up everything I have in a heartbeat to have one more hour with my mum tomorrow. But it would, it changes who you are as a person. And I think once you get over the hump of the horrific, there is kind of some sunshine on the other side. And I think that's what mum would want, it's the hardest thing for me was like, because I was so in love with mum and so young, while she was sick, I was just in complete denial. She fell sick when I was 13. She's going through chemo and bald and wigs, and I still just thought mum will be fine, and almost carried on like she had a cold or something. Like I knew it was more serious than that deep down, but I never once for 1 second accepted that she would ever pass away. And so when she did, it just kind of hits you like a ton of bricks, and it really sort of rattles you for quite a while. Like I reckon it probably affected me for negatively for 10 years, and I reckon it still negatively affects my brother and sister because they probably weren't old enough to be able to handle it as well. Yeah,
you're 100% right. 10 years is the number that I personally feel is when I was.
That's not to say at the 10-year mark I forgot about everything,
absolutely.
But there would be weekly occurrences where I'd burst into tears or I'd be the way I would be, and I reckon if I really analysed why I was like that, it'd be a feeling of frustration or that's not fair or like you just don't. You just don't, things like that you just don't get. Like why would such an amazing person that happen to you?
Yeah. Well, it's completely unfair, and the brain tries to rationalise it and make sense of things, and there's no making sense of that.
No, totally.
Yeah.
No.
So you had your kind of 10 years in the abyss of grief. But at the same time, you're a young adolescent going through the big changes in life, like finishing school and making big life decisions. And how did that go? Were you able to?
I was definitely, compared to most of my friends, pretty lost. I didn't really, like lots of my friends, whether they've ended up there now necessarily, not always, but, they knew what they wanted to do at uni to get the job that they wanted to get or whatever it was. I didn't, I sort of applied to do uni and remember reading my acceptance letter and going, why am I doing this? This doesn't really make sense. I don't even know what I'm doing.
You got into law though, right?
Yeah, I applied to do law psychology, double degree at UTAS. I'm not even sure why. It's kind of funny to look back and I mean, psychology I kind of get. I loved studying psychology at school, and even now what I do, there's definitely a really big psychological aspect to it. But it's interesting that's I think I just watched too many movies or something. It was made no sense.
Law and Order.
Yeah, exactly. Too many John Grisham books or something. But I remember reading that acceptance letter going, what am I doing? Like, I love sport and I love people, and I think you think maybe that can't be a job though. Like maybe that can be a now job, but is that going to be a proper job or a serious job or a career? Where you can raise a family off that salary or whatever it is. Not that I probably had thoughts that deep about it, but I went off to summer camp to coach basketball in America. And a bit of a discovery mission. Let's put everything on hold and do that for 6 months, and just fell in love with coaching. Coaching kids, working with people. There was a health and fitness aspect. So then when I came back, I applied to do human movement or exercise science degree, and you couldn't do that in Hobart. You had to do it in Launceston. So I thought, if I'm going to go to Lonnie, I may as well move to the mainland, as we call it, the big mainland, as us Tassie people call it. And so I I got accepted to Ballarat Uni, which had a really good reputation for their human movement course, and moved to Ballarat, which kind of felt weird because, nothing against Ballarat, but I'd always thought if I go to the mainland, it'll be this big step up to this big metropolitan city, and Ballarat's not too dissimilar to Hobart. It's all it's small. It is smaller. So I remember loving the study, but kind of still feeling like I should be in Melbourne. I'd come down to Melbourne on weekends and watch the footy and see friends. And so then when a guy called Craig Harper came to Ballarat Uni to do a presentation to all of the human movement students across the 3 years on he owned the biggest personal training studio in Melbourne called Harper's Personal Training down the road here in Brighton. 1,000 square metre facility, 30 trainers, running track around the outside. He was painting this. He's a great, brilliant presenter, great storyteller. And so he had all these, really super keen, young, hungry human movement students sitting on the edge of their seat. And at the end of it, I went up to him and said, "Oh, Craig, thanks so much. That was amazing. My name's Sam. Do you take work experience, kids? I'd love to do my work experience with you." And he's like, "Oh, mate, to be honest, it might be a tricky. You're in Ballarat, I'm in Melbourne." And he wasn't being an asshole. He was just being a realist. You live here, it's down there. You probably have to be there at 6 a.m. I don't know logistically how this is going to work. Yeah. But I didn't take no for an answer. I kept ringing him up, and he's like, "You're a persistent little bugger, aren't you?" And so he eventually, September holidays were probably, 3 months away, and he said, "Look, if you're prepared to find somewhere to stay in Melbourne for the 2 weeks of your September holidays, and you're prepared to be there from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m, then you can come. You're not going to get paid anything. You'll probably be cleaning toilets." He didn't paint a very glamorous picture. I think he wanted to make sure I knew what I was getting myself into. And I said, "Yep, done." So I found a friend in Melbourne, and within sort of like bike riding distance of the gym, I got on my little bike, and I'd get there at 5 o'clock every morning. And at the end of the 2 weeks, he called me into his office and he said, "If you want a full-time or start your own career here, you're a subcontractor, so it's not necessarily a full-time job unless you get busy. There's a position for you at the start of the new year, and I've got some contacts at some of the Melbourne universities, and I can help you transfer across with your degree if you'd like some help in that department." And that was kind of the start of my fitness career.
Amazing.
So it all sort of springboarded from there.
So how soon after doing that did you move into Gecko and starting that whole...
Oh, Gecko was still another 5 years. Okay. So I moved to Harper's, and it just kind of exploded. I'd been very lost for a very long time. And even while studying human movement and going, I'm loving learning all this stuff, all your anatomy and physiology, it was the business side of, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree with my dad. I loved the business side of things, and I loved, and as a subcontractor, you kind of, it's like having your own little micro business without all the scary stuff. You can learn slowly about tax, and the rent does, you pay your $350 a week to the owner of the premises, but you don't have all these, utility bills and all these other, insurance costs. So it went crazy. I went from 0 appointments a week to 80 in about 3 or 4 months. Whoa. So I was probably one of the busiest trainers in Australia within 3 or 4 months. I remember Craig called me into his office at Easter and said, "So, mate, the goal now would be that you're doing 20 appointments a week." And I said, "I think I did 75 last week." And he's like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, and you could tell he was like, "I should have charged you more rent." And he said, "I've never seen anything like it." He said, "What marketing are you doing?" I said, "None. It's just all word of mouth." Wow. And it was just, I literally felt like this is what I'm meant to do. I was quite good at selling, but it was more that a lot of my clients, I think, just loved that I was this skinny little ambitious friendly kid from Tassie who was having a crack.
Yeah.
And you'd do a session with them, and I'd talk to them like I talk to you. I'd be like, "Oh, this is what I want to do, and I'm so excited to be here." And they'd be like, "Oh, this kid's pretty real and raw." And I was pretty rough around the edges, but you could tell I think they just wanted to help me out. Yeah. So they were like, "Oh, I should introduce you to Sarah. She'd love to train with you. She was only saying the other day, you're doing that personal training thing. Can you give me his number?" And it just kind of snowballed.
Wow.
I didn't really chase it. So that was 5 crazy years, and then during that 5 years, I started training kids, and I remember a mum came in, and it was a boy who needed help with tennis, with his footwork and his strength and all this kind of stuff. He was kind of this up and coming tennis prodigy, and then there was another little boy who, for him, it was weight loss and self confidence. So it's kind of any end of the spectrum, from super sporty, that extra 2%, to really didn't have a good relationship with either their own self-confidence, body image, or sport, full stop. And how could I perhaps help that in some way? Because, as you know, as a parent, those messages kind of fall on deaf ears if they're coming from mum or dad. So, a fresh perspective and someone they kind of looked up to and thought was cool and fun and all that kind of stuff, it can really cut through quite powerfully. And so, I kind of got to 90, 100 appointments a week, which 30 were the kids.
Wow.
And parents would be bringing their kids out of school at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, instead of doing whatever subjects they had scheduled at that time, and they'd be seeing me for an hour, and the parents would be saying, look, the benefit Tommy gets with you, Sam, is immeasurable, and whatever they're missing at school, it's well worth it, because you're having a really positive impact. And it just made me think there's got to be more to this. There's got to be... I was still having to train them in an adult environment where, there's heavy weights and there's adults grunting. And not that it was really a grunting gym, but, it wasn't a super kid-friendly place. So, Gecko was born. Green, purple, orange, Gecko Sports. Went out on my own, and I did it with Craig. So... Craig Harper, I came into his office and said, "Look, mate, I need to spread my wings. I need to have something of my own." And you could tell he didn't want me to leave, so he said, "Oh, why don't we do something together?" Anyway, he bought 20% as a sort of mentor. It was kind of nice. I felt like I had someone holding my hand. And we hired an old petrol station in Hampton and scrubbed it all up and painted it all up, and basketball rings on the walls, and reactable nets and running tracks and boxing bags and little bikes and little rowers. And
oh my God.
it just, so it was after school classes, and then that turned into holiday programs. And then I remember sitting at the desk one day, and a mum came in and, my son was wondering if you guys do birthday parties. We didn't do birthday parties, but yep, sure. What sport do they love? And so, we'll give him a Soccer World Cup. And we had footy fanatics and, crazy cricket and all this kind of stuff. And it just, we had about 400 kids enrolled in the first year, and then 3 or 4 birthday parties every weekend. We went into schools and did incursions. Schools came to us for excursions. It was a great business, but it was exhausting. It was real. I was taking every class and running the business. So I probably did 35, 40 hours and kids classes are about 70 times more exhausting than a one-on-one personal training appointment with an adult. Your energy has to be 120% all the time, or you're doing them a bit of a disservice. So it's pretty full on. I loved every second of it, but it was like, I remember thinking, how can we grow this? And we then headed down the path, licensing the brand and the programs to gyms. And we got to about 30 gyms in Australia using the Gecko program. But it had a lot of challenges. Like, the good ones were really good, the bad ones were really bad. You'd have high turnover in these gyms. And anyway, it's a more of a business story, but it ended up, the Gecko adventure, I learnt so much, but I probably lost, I don't know, $600,000-$800,000 over an 8-year period. Yeah, I got investors on board that I used to train their son. In fact, their son was that tennis prodigy kid that I first spoke about, and they fell in love with me, and you can do this, Sam, and they were very wealthy, so they lent me money. Yeah. And I didn't really know what I was doing from a business perspective, but I knew that I wanted to do something. Anyway, it was a very hard thing to license, but then in the last couple of years we franchised it, and I still keep a close eye on Gecko. It's still going great. I think there's 40 franchises now across Australia. It got bought off me by an amazing lady, Kim, who was one of the franchisees. And she only approached me because I had the woodshed, and which is my PT studio now, and I had 28, my online program, and she could kind of see that I'd probably was spreading myself a bit too thin, and she politely sort of said, the franchise network's a bit worried you might not be able to give us as much love as you used to be able to give us. With the Bachelor, kind of having the world explode.
Yeah.
And I said, look, you're probably right, but I love Gecko. It's my baby. I've been doing it for 10 years. And she said, oh, well, I'd love to buy it off you and continue to grow it and run it. And you couldn't really think of a better way for it to continue on. So she still does that, does an amazing job. It's going from strength to strength. And I loved every second, even though I lost the money. I didn't really, I just loved every second. I'd do it all again tomorrow.
Wow.
I loved every second of it.
Yeah.
Learned so much. And I definitely think the success of my business now is due to the mistakes I made then, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all, I think we always just end up wherever we're meant to end up. So all the kind of shit things.
Yeah, which is very hard to accept when you're losing money or you're stressed or you're lost. I mean, I used to read, your Richard Branson books and all that kind of stuff, and he's big on that, if you just do what you love and you do it well and you surround yourself with good people, the money will come or the success will come or whatever, your idea of success is. And when you're in debt and that's really hard to believe. Yeah. But then when you do make it, you realise it's so true.
Yeah. It's just getting through that. I think financial stress is one of the most challenging things to overcome.
It's very hard to have any faith or perspective. I mean, I've always been a very, very optimistic person, which is probably why I spent so much money, because I kept thinking, it's going to turn around, it's going to turn around, I just need a bit more time, a bit more money, a bit more time, a bit more money. Yeah. And I was obviously quite persuasive because this incredible family that was investing in the business were happy to keep investing, but I almost feel like if I'd been more of a realist then, I probably would have got myself in less hot water. I'm still paying these people back, by the way, but they've been incredibly patient.
If you're anything like me, you'll find it almost impossible to carve out that time for the gym and often end up making poor food choices. 28 by Sam Wood breaks down these barriers by providing daily home workouts that only take 28 minutes and over 3,000 recipes that are not only delicious, but seriously simple. If you sign up to 28 by Sam Wood before midnight on Monday the 4th of November, you'll receive a free copy of Sam's best-selling cookbook, 28 by Sam Wood. Just apply the coupon CuriousLife when joining. So things are going well from a business perspective, maybe not in your pocket, but your message was spreading and the business was booming. And then The Bachelor comes along.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look, like you say, everything kind of happens for a reason. So I owned a gym and Gecko. So I had a small adults personal training studio, the Woodshed, and Gecko, which we were furiously trying to... The Brighton Hampton Gecko was still going great, but it was about how do we expand these and they do equally as successfully when we expand them. Yep. And that was kind of any money that was being made in the other businesses was very quickly being spent with those experiments and heading down that path. And I was sitting at the gym reception one morning and a lady came in, Kelly, and she said, and I guess because I was working so much, I'd been single for, I was 35 and I'd been single for 5 years. And Kelly said, the beautiful lady who trained with Gary, one of the trainers, and she'd always come in for a chat before or after a session, and she's like, how are you still single and all this kind of stuff? And she'd kind of mother me a little bit and we'd have a bit of a laugh. And she said, you should go on that Bachelor show. And I'd never seen the show. I'd seen ads on TV, but I didn't really know what she's talking about. And she said, I'm serious. And I said, oh, don't be silly, Kelly. That's the most ridiculous idea I've ever heard. And she literally walked around behind reception and got my keyboard and Googled Bachelor applications. Oh, my God. And up it popped. And she said, I'm going upstairs to train with Gary and you're going to fill this out. Wow. And I was like, okay, Kelly. Anyway, so I had a read through and I thought, you know what, I'm going to fill this out. Who knows? And I honestly had never seen an episode, so I really didn't even know what I was applying for. And as I started doing it, it was quite fairly deep, thorough process, psychological testing. And once you've pressed enter, you can't go back and change an answer. That was already that was automatically in the system. So you have to tell the truth, or I guess your answers have to stack up, or it'll work out that you're kind of just telling them what they think you want to hear or whatever it is. And it was about a 60-page questionnaire. Wow. Whether you had to write answers or multiple choice or whatever it was. And so when Kelly finished her session, I was still only halfway through the bloody thing. And she's like, oh, you are doing it? I said, oh, yeah, why not? Anyway, so she stood there while I finished it off, had a bit of a laugh at me, looked over my shoulder. And the phone rang the next day and they said, "Oh, hi, it's so-and-so from Shine, the production company. We got your application and it looked really good. Would we be able to do a 1 hour sort of FaceTime interview with you?" And I said, "Yeah, that's okay." I said, "When?" She said, "Oh, how's tomorrow?" Geez, that's pretty quick. Sure. So, we booked it all in and had a 60-minute face-to-face chat.
Wow.
And thanks so much, Sam. That's great. We'll get in touch. Literally 24 hours later, I an email saying, "Hi, Sam. We'd like to fly you to Sydney for a panel interview with some of the producers and director and whatever, the heads of Channel 10." And I'm like, "Oh, wow. Well, that's going pretty quickly."
Yeah.
And so I jumped on a plane 2 days later, in my thongs and jeans and a T-shirt, and sat down, the camera's on me, and we're in this sort of boardroom at the Shine offices, and head of TV from Channel 10's there and all this kind of stuff, and probably 2 hours felt like about 15 minutes. It was just a really fun, really quick, lovely people. And I remember leaving, and Sean, the executive producer, who I'm now very good friends with, he sort of grabbed me on the arm and he said, "Mate, don't go doing anything silly and getting a mohawk or anything in the next couple of weeks." And I said, "No, mate," I said, "I won't be doing anything like that." Yeah. But I thought that's kind of interesting. And about 10 days later, I got a phone call saying, "Mate, you're it if you want it, but you'll have to pack up your life in Melbourne. You've got in a week, and you won't be able to tell anyone where you're going, and you'll be gone for 15 weeks.
Oh, my God.
And so I had Gecko, I had the woodshed, and I had to, and he said, "Think about it, don't give me an answer then." And I just remember thinking, I have no idea what I'm getting myself into here, and I should have probably done a bit more research. But I also remember thinking, if I don't do this, I'll always wonder what if. Yeah. And it's easy to say retrospectively. Imagine if I hadn't done it. It's been the best thing that ever happened to me, meeting Snez, obviously.
Absolutely.
But I was literally like, nah, I'll kick myself. I'll wonder what if. And so I said yes. I remember told my best mate what I was doing and my dad, two people that I trust with my life. And I had to tell work that I had to go overseas for some course or something. I just told them a big furphy, and they're like, "That's a bit sudden and a bit weird, but okay." And I kind of, there were a few sort of senior people who stepped up and did a great job kind of holding the fort in my absence. And I remember when we were filming the show, about the 8-week mark, it leaked somehow. Them paparazzi must have taken a photo, and Sam Wood is your next Bachelor. And so the next thing, my poor staff at the gym are getting paparazzi rock up, phones ringing with, media people trying to get some dirt on me. God. Or what can you really tell us about Sam? What's he like? Did he tell you where he's going? And they're like, "What? Where is he? He's in America." "He's not in America. He's lied to you."
Yeah.
Like, all this kind of stuff happened.
In the mansion.
Yeah, and then they Google it and like, "Oh my God, cheeky bugger." Anyway, so I remember I didn't have my phone because they take your phone off you. I remember getting my phone back and I had about 1,700 text messages from people just going, "What the hell is this?" And,
wow.
But
so you really don't have a phone. I thought at least The Bachelor would have that luxury.
No, they don't want you. It's hard because you lose all your independence, but they don't want you losing your. They don't want you creating a bias by reading stuff about yourself. Like, if you start reading, this guy looks like a dickhead, or something, whatever, it might affect sort of you being yourself during the filming process. So they really sort of cut you off from the outside world during the process. It's very, very intense. It's kind of 14, 15 hours a day, 6-7 days a week for 14 weeks.
Oh, my God.
And you're thrown right in the deep end from day one. But, best thing I've ever done, because I met Snez and Evie, and it's changed my life in ways that, can't even imagine. Yeah. But it's made me it was so good for me from a personal growth and development perspective. You get vulnerable, you get comfortable talking about your feelings, you get, comfortable in front of a camera, builds your resilience. You know, like there's a lot going on. You know, you've got crew, you've got 100 staff on this huge set, and you've got to, you know, remember 25 girls' names and chat to them. Like it's nuts.
Intense.
Really intense. You know, like when I chat to, you know, even Matt, the most recent Bachelor, who's a really nice fella, you know, he's like, yeah, no one really gets it, do they? Like, it's kind of good to chat to you because, like, there's only a handful of us that kind of understand this. And yeah, it's true, you know. People would think that they might have a bit of a perspective, but you don't. I mean, even if I was trying to imagine what it would be like, I think I'd undersell it. It's really full on.
Yeah, I can barely remember somebody's name. I just meet them for the first time.
I think my gecko kid's birthday parties held me in good stead, where you meet all the little kids before they run around like maniacs at a 4-year-old birthday party. I think that was my saviour.
And have you since watched Unreal, which is...
I have, yeah. When I finished my season, Osher actually sent me a message saying, okay, mate, it's safe now. You're through it. Yep. Check this out. And he sent me a link to this show. And I'm like, oh, my God. Yeah. Yeah, and you know, he understands that's a very, very strong exaggeration. And I would appreciate the sort of funny side because it is taking it to such an extreme level. But I think there are people out there that think it's closer to Unreal than what, you know, which is not at all. That is completely blown out of proportion. But it's a funny thing to watch once you've been in the bubble yourself.
Totally. It's funny actually, just as a viewer, hearing comments like that from, you know, friends when we're messaging about the show or whatever. There's always a comment like, oh, that was totally set up by producers. Yeah. There's no way he would have chosen her. He has to keep her in because she's the drama or whatever.
And there's a little bit of that. I mean, it's early when there's the only bit that they, you know, you can choose who you want. And if you really put your foot down, you can always choose who you want. It's just early days. If there's some real drama happening when you're not there, you know, the girls with each other, they would, when that's playing out and there's still 23 girls left, if you are saying goodbye to 2 girls, they probably wouldn't want you to say goodbye to one of those girls that's, you know, having some pretty exciting conversations with one of the others. So they might sort of go, if you don't mind, maybe don't send, you know, Sally home tonight, and you're like, oh, I guess that's okay, you know, like, you know, can't see Sally and I ending up together, but at the same time, if I don't have to send her home tonight, that's fine too, you know, it doesn't worry me. Yeah, so once it then gets down to, you know, the last 10 girls or whatever, and they don't tell you anything. You know,
then it's fully your choice.
Totally. I mean, they want it to be. You know, they don't want that to feel. I'm sure the way it gets edited, and maybe that conversation happened before that conversation. By the time it gets to air, builds a bit of drama. I'm sure they cut out some moments with Snezana and I too, because they didn't want it to feel too obvious that she was going to win. Yeah. You know, we were getting really, really close. I'm sure. You know, I'm sure there was some. Well, I know there was some. You know, pretty special moments where they went, I think if we share that, people will think it's a done deal. We probably don't show that.
Maybe when you said to her, "Listen, you're the winner."
They're very big on. Please don't say anything like that. You know, like it ruins the whole show. Yeah. Like, we get it. But which gets really hard to do. Like when you can see someone who you're falling in love with going through a difficult time because they don't know where they stand, and you know you could fix that. That's really hard.
So I've always actually wondered about that. Like, is there really no moment where you can, like, off camera whisper, like, I really, really like you?
They have people watching you the whole time.
Really?
Like, you've got their producers and your producers literally with you at all times, and the second they take the mics off, they go, okay, we need you over here, and Sam, you need to be over there, and they sort of separate you, and then you kind of find your way merging back together because you're having dinner or something. Hey, what are you two doing next week? Hey, off you go. You know, like, they're always, and you know, they're lovely about it. They go, oh, you know, we get how ridiculous these guys, but if you say something incredible that we could have captured you saying on camera, you know, like that's, you know,
they're making a show.
They're making a show. Yeah, there is something so nice about that moment after the finale when you don't have your cameras on and they say, oh, you know, they'd booked. I think we're the only couple to never get an overseas holiday. We're in the Blue Mountains, which was exquisite. But they booked us an Airbnb out in the middle of the mountains, about half an hour away from where the finale had aired, and you get in the car and literally it's the first time for 14 weeks that you've been able to speak to each other where you haven't had a microphone on.
Oh, my God.
And you're almost paranoid that the car's been bugged or something, and you're driving along this little dirt street at 11 o'clock at night, and it's strange.
Still whispering to each other.
A bit, yeah. I mean, we got back to the house and we opened a bottle of wine and we lit the fire and we literally just chatted till about 5 in the morning, just sort of catching up properly.
Yeah.
And, we knew so much about each other, but we then learnt so much more about each other. And Snezana's a lot shyer than I am. So for her, it was like, I feel like I can really now kind of let go. It was always a little bit stuck, a little bit reserved. And, and there's also that natural feeling. I don't want to get my heart broken either.
Totally.
So, like, she was totally relaxed for the first time.
Amazing.
And, it's a pretty special 24 hours.
Wow. When I think about your season, there's only one moment I can really remember, and that was when it must have been a cocktail party and you accidentally kissed her. You'd sort of like, do you remember the moment?
Yeah,
you were like going through a doorway or something and you sort of kissed her like you would if it was your girlfriend.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, oh my God, everyone was talking about, whoa, she's the front runner. And there must have been feelings there that were more significant.
Yeah, I mean, and that's because they're real and you just do it because you're in the moment, and you kind of forget there's always someone watching. But I mean, it was funny for Snez because she said, I got on so well with all the girls until you asked me on a second date before a lot of the girls had a first date. And they'd all assumed that as a single mum, she wasn't a threat or whatever, and she wasn't going to get chosen. Yeah. And so they were so nice to her. Yeah. And then when that happened, it's like literally something changed because we got back from that date and she said you could cut the tension with a knife. They all went from going, oh, you look so beautiful, have a great day, to they must have all gotten together and had a chat about, hang on a second, why would she be getting asked on a second date? And then they all hated her after. Not hate her, but, their attitudes had definitely changed and they then did see her as a threat. And she said the dynamic had literally changed in a 3-hour period. But
that'd be so tough. I mean, I couldn't imagine living in a space like that with so many other women anyway, and then to have all of that tension and
to be away from your little 9-year-old who you hadn't spent one day apart from ever.
Oh my God, I cannot even.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't appreciate it like I do now because I wasn't a dad. Yeah, like I was like, oh, that must be so hard, but I was probably just saying that without really grasping how hard it would have been. Yeah. I got how hard it would have been when I saw them reunite. I was like, wow. Like there were tears. I was crying. It was amazing. Yeah. And I was like, wow. And then, obviously as a dad, like I couldn't even imagine being away from my kids for 13 weeks.
Seriously. But you know what? It's like you were saying before. You go through the hardship and you end up where you're supposed to be.
Oh, totally. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm sure... I hope Snez would say I'd do it all again. Be a worry if she wouldn't. But it's absolutely. I mean, often the best things in life do happen when we get uncomfortable and we get out of our comfort zone and we learn about ourselves and we push ourselves and whether it be business or your fitness or whatever, it absolutely is where the good stuff normally happens.
Well, good thing you mentioned fitness because we've been having a great chat here.
We have. How long have we been talking for?
52
Oh, look at us go. Look at us go. I don't shut up, do I?
No, it's great. Loving it. But, I do want to talk about 28, which is, obviously this huge animal of its own now. I mean,
animal.
I think last time we spoke you said that you'd had like something like 200,000.
Yeah. So, a bit over 200,000 people have done the program.
Wow.
We launched in Feb 2016. So we're nearly 3.5 years old. Okay. So, which, I don't know, 3.5 years old, it literally feels like a year. Yeah. It's gone so fast. Best job ever. I literally, it doesn't feel like a job at all. I love coming into the office each day, there's so much exciting new stuff happening from a tech perspective. I've got this great team that I work with, but most of all just because you see how much of an impact you're having on people's lives. You know, I would literally get 20 messages a day from people saying it changed their life.
Wow.
You know, photos, tears,
Yep.
really raw, beautiful moments that they sort of are comfortable sharing with me. It's an amazing thing. It's bigger than I ever thought it could have been when we first started, and now that we've kind of reached this point, weirdly it feels like we're just getting started. It's almost like the more we learn and the bigger it gets, the more it feels like we can help more and more people. You know, it's one of those momentum type businesses that the more people tell their friends about it and the more people get results and their friends say, what have you been doing, the faster it grows. And you know, I feel like we did things right from the beginning. You know, we got a really great program with great experts from nutrition and sleep and psychologists, and you know, I really poured all of me into it, and I still do on a daily basis. You know, I think there's a lot of programs out there where the kind of face is a bit of a set and forget face, and you know, they're the person on the ads, but they're not really involved with the business. And I sort of pride myself on being here in the office every day, and it's just to be able to. It's an extension of me, and it's an extension of Snez, and it's, you know, we share things with our kids, and I think that relatability, and as a dad, and Snez is a mum, and so many of the people on my program are mums, you know, that just really helps because you can understand the real life challenges. You know, I remember as a 21-year-old trainer, I had no real empathy for people that said, it's hard to get to the gym, Sam, as a mum. Come on, that's, you know, you're just not trying hard enough or whatever it is. Now I'm like, it's so true. Yeah. So to be able to give people workouts they can do in under 30 minutes in the comfort of their own home, meals that the whole family like that are quick and easy, and you can get the kids cooking with you or whatever it is, and then support through the community, through my daily videos, through emails with any questions that come in, all the other, you know, community. We're doing retreats next year. We're doing, there's a whole bunch of really, really cool things happening. We're just going to take it from strength to strength, and I pinch myself. I really do. I've always loved being a trainer, and 28 just now allows me to be a trainer, but just to help so many more people. It's just amazing. And
it's maybe giving you that opportunity to spread yourself further than you were able to do. One-on-one or in
much
groups.
further. I mean, there's only so many hours in a day. I miss doing the one-on-one stuff, but, you know, I used to be able to impact 50 people a week, and I can now impact 50,000. You know, it's pretty amazing.
So for people that don't know, as you mentioned, it's fitness, meals, there's a community. Yeah. Can people pick one aspect? Like if someone only wants to do the training?
No, it's all encompassing, and that's deliberate, only because it works. I mean, you can be a 28 member, use all of our meals, do one workout a weekend, have a gym membership, that's fine. But you get it all. I mean, it's $59 a month. So for the cost of less than a gym membership, you get all three. We've got over 3,000 recipes. The support is real. You know, if you ask a question or need a video, it comes to you that day. And I think that's what people sort of recognise, you know, like... I mean, you can get a program anywhere. You can get a free program off the internet, or you can, you know, buy a cookbook. But having everything in one place where, you know, you can say, I'm gluten intolerant. What should I swap that ingredient for? Or, you know, can you bring out a pescatarian eating plan? Yes, we can. And, you know, we provide that. Or, Sam, I've got a calf injury. What exercises should I avoid and what should I replace them with? You know, whatever it might be, and being able to like give people that customised experience. But there's just a huge growth in the understanding of online fitness. You know, even 5 years ago, it was a bit of a foreign kind of idea. Now people, because technology is so quick, you know, you can tap play on your phone and you're doing a live workout with me at the click of a finger. And you don't have to get in the car, find a car park, drive to the gym, not worried that there's other people staring at you at the gym. Like you literally, there's a stat that gets sort of bandied around that in Australia, 85% of people don't use their gym membership more than 4 times a year. Oh my God. And so, I mean, which just, so those that use them, lots, get great. And I'm not anti-gyms. I've got a gym.
Yeah.
I think they're wonderful. But just the reality is people don't use them. You know, you pay for something you don't get value from. So, and we know that 65% of our 28ers use the program at least once a week.
Wow.
So, you know, it's like the polar opposite.
Huge.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it's just amazing to see that you're having a real impact because you've got to reduce the barriers, whether it be you didn't feel supported, you lacked motivation, you didn't know how to cook, or the convenience factor of the gym was just too hard, or the intimidation factor of the gym was just too hard.
Yeah.
We try and reduce those barriers and let you still get great results from home. And, I think that's where the magic is. I really do.
Amazing. So if you were to think of 3 quick tips for people at home who maybe it's mums trying to get moving, maybe it's someone thinking about their water or food intake. I don't know, 3 easy things for people to do to start making a move towards better health.
Yep. So the first one sounds a bit funny, but just start. The amount of people that say to me, Sam, when I get fit, I'm going to come down to the woodshed, or when I get fit, I'm going to join 28.
Yeah.
You don't. The whole point is we're here to help you start from a 1 and get you to a 9. Yeah. Don't wait till you're a 5 before you start, because most people don't get to a 5. And therefore they never take that first step. So take that first step. The other big one is progress, not perfection. Don't try and be a 10 out of 10 with your food and a 10 out of 10 with your workouts. You're much better off to aim to be a 7 or 8 out of 10 at both, because it's sustainable. That means still giving yourself a glass of wine, still having a piece of chocolate. If you miss a workout yesterday, so what? It doesn't matter. Your world doesn't end. Yeah. People are way too hard on themselves and they think that you've got to be perfect. You can still get incredible results being an 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10. And the third one would be, I've probably got 20, but the third one would probably be don't neglect water and sleep. So aim to get 3 litres of water a day. If you think of food as the fuel for your body, think of water as the oil for that engine, and your metabolism and everything else just won't work efficiently if you're dehydrated. And for so many of us, we think we sort of hero ourselves of not needing sleep, and we're only kidding ourselves. Look, as a new dad, I get the magic number is 7. Ideally get 7 hours a night. I can't remember last time I had 7 hours sleep, but once you get over those humps of babies and that kind of stuff, if you can, the amount of stuff we do late at night, scrolling through our Facebook, binge watching Netflix, there is always a 30 or 60 minute extra bit of sleep at that time of the night if we are proactive about it. So try and get as close to 7 hours of quality sleep a night, and you'll just find from a recovery perspective, from a mental health perspective, it's really, really beneficial.
Yeah, 100%. I think they're really great tips, Sam. Thank you for that.
Good.
I want to thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
It's really been such a pleasure chatting with you
Always.
again.
I didn't cry today. I think you got all the tears out of me last time. I did say to myself I shouldn't cry this time. You really got me to well up last time talking about mum, but that's okay. Yeah. That's okay.
Well, that's all right. I'll remember that conversation.
I know you will.
It was pretty special. Sorry, guys. Maybe the third time round.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Third time's a charm, huh?
That's it. All right. Well, thank you so much
again.
You're
most welcome. Thanks for having me.
I'll put all the links to 28 and your
Instagram.
Great.
Yeah, it's just the website. So 28bysamwood.com, and everything on that website will show you what the program's all about, and would love to work with you.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
All right. Thanks, Sam.
Bye.